Hi, amigos. My name is Sylvia Manuela, and I am a proud Portuguese American, child of immigrants, and the host of this podcast, the New Friends Podcast. If this is your first time listening, this is where I share my love for all things Portuguese. My life stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly, traveling to community events, and reconnecting with my roots, including singing with Conjunto Zodiac after 10 years of not singing on stage. I'll take you behind the scenes as I meet amazing people, fado singers, comedians, restaurant owners, and creators who are thriving to keep our culture alive. If you've ever debated whose pastéis nata are better or ended your night with a 45-minute Portuguese goodbye, this podcast is for you. Listen to wherever you listen to podcasts or on the Palma app, on Palma Pulse. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at the New Friends Podcast. Let's laugh, share, and keep our culture thriving. Viva Portugal! Welcome to the New Friends Podcast. Alex Soares, Sousa Soares.
Sousa.
Which is crazy because my maiden name is Soares. And we have so many similarities where you're one of three girls as well, right? Three sisters and the youngest.
Yes.
Her name is Alex. My son's name is Alex. Like, it's just meant to be. We had to be on the podcast together. That's for sure.
Soares is my maiden name also.
That's insane. It's like so many similarities. And I met Alex from just following Portuguese people on TikTok and trying to build up the podcast TikTok and just trying to change my algorithm to just be Portuguese stuff so that I can help support creators. So I found out and heard about you through just being really one of the Portuguese American TikTokers that were just doing their thing. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So some of you guys are not in the TikTok world. I feel like that's where people would know you most, right?
Yes.
From the TikTok. And so you're so funny to me. I love your content. So thanks for keeping it spicy. And not just the entertaining thing, but you have like such a journey and a story in your life. And I think it would be really nice to be able to share that journey because there's so many people silently struggling through things. I just learned a new thing about you when we were talking beforehand that you started this journey because of postpartum depression. And some of my longtime listeners know that is why I started my podcast, because I kind of needed like a diary, and I'm such a talker and I have to talk through things to get through things. And I'm not a private person at all.
No, and I feel like I should be.
Yeah.
I'm the same
I
way.
hate myself sometimes. I'm like, not everybody needs to know all your shit, but I don't know. That's just how I was made. I've been like that since I was a little girl, like unfiltered.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why we are similar, because we're kind of, I don't want to say like not harsh or not like brutal or anything, but we're just like put it on the table. Like what you see is what you get. Like there's no funny business.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm way too open sometimes. And sometimes after I'm on the phone with my therapist, I'm like, why did they need to know that? They didn't need to know that. But I'm just too open and I can't help myself in the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's good to say that you go to therapy, that's kind of what I was following along as the first time going to therapy for myself and doing the postpartum thing, because it was scary when I had my second child. Like the visions I was having, all of that stuff was really scary. I didn't know how to handle it. And Portuguese people do not admit to their mental health.
That was a huge thing, having to coming out to and telling my parents that I'm not okay. They didn't believe in postpartum depression. And even when I was going through it, I think they had to see it for themselves that I was like, I need help. This is not normal. I felt like I was in a black cloud and I was just crying. And they're like, okay, this is a real thing.
It's beyond baby blues, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was beyond that. So I think it's important to just call out that like therapy doesn't mean you're crazy or a psycho. It just means you actually are self-aware and you need that there's like other resources that can help you be a better mom, better wife, whatever it may be, family member. And so good job. You know, I'm proud of you for seeking help, because that it could get really dangerous, honestly. Like, we've heard crazy stories about.
Especially with our culture, we're brought up to just kind of hide it in and like deal with it or tell yourself it's not real. It's just all in your head. And then a lot of people don't realize that if you don't work with your issues, it becomes worse and it gets bottled up. And then one day you blow up.
Yeah. It's crazy. How do you feel now?
I'm a lot better. It definitely took 2 years to finally get back to my normal self. I still deal with anxiety and panic attacks.
Same.
I always, and some impulsive thoughts, but I'm able to kind of control them and tell myself that it's not real. It's just my head. And it also doesn't help the fact that I got into a severe car accident with my children when my little one was 4 weeks old. So that really kind of made the postpartum like a longer action just to get through it. And even now, like, I'm scared to drive. I always feel like someone's gonna hit me. PTSD. So I still have a little bit of it, but I feel like that's something that's never going to go away.
I know. And sorry that you have to go through that. I suffer with so much anxiety too. And I just want, like, in my head, all I want is to like fix me so that like my kids don't have to deal with it, you know, because I think there was in our culture, it's like, you got to keep it moving. You got to keep it moving. You got to keep it moving. Like, you got to just keep going. And it's like, you got to sit in your feelings sometimes and legitimately go through it. You have to go through it and try to find your way out of that.
And I used to tell myself, you just got to keep breathing. Every day is a new day, and you just have to be present and not, keep thinking about the future.
Exactly. So you had a cancer scare with your son. How old was he when he had cancer, when you found out? How did that journey start?
He was 2 months. This was back in April 2017. He was a really good baby. He never cried. I was a teen mom, and he was such an amazing baby. Slept through the night, never gave me issues. Only really cried when it was to eat. And every baby had those different types of cries. And one day he just kept crying, like as if he was getting like vaccinations. And I knew something was off, but then I would kind of just brush it off. Maybe it's gas. And then it got to a point we were at a baby shower and he just couldn't stop screaming. And something in my gut told me to take him to the local hospital in Rhode Island. And once we got there, I do believe like everything happens for a reason, and God led me to that moment. Once we got there, obviously he's a baby. He can't say, what's hurting him. So they had to poke around him. Once they touched his like right side shoulder, he started screaming again. So they wanted to go forward with x-rays. And they said, could possibly dislocated a shoulder or something. And in my head, I'm like, okay, that's not bad. Like, it's easy fix,
That makes sense. Yeah.
So then I remember holding him and he was still screaming during the x-rays. And then we go back in the room. Within a half an hour, I'm noticing a bunch of nurses are going to the computer. And one nurse just looked at me and just like her face was just completely different. And I knew instantly they were talking about my baby. And they come in, and mind you, I'm only 17 years old. I don't know any medical terminology. They're telling me they found something on his x-ray in his chest. While they were looking at the shoulder, they found it in the chest. They wanted to admit him, could be nothing. Later on that day, he gets admitted. We go upstairs. They tell me right away that he's going to go see an oncologist. But I'm, dumb and young, and I think an oncologist is a doctor on call. So I'm like, okay. So I'm not thinking anything, could be nothing still. And the next day, I felt like I was an episode of Grey's Anatomy. There's doctors, students. The whole room is filled with students and doctors, and they're telling me, we believe your son has neuroblastoma cancer. And I was so caught off guard. And I remember just looking at he was such a fatty. He was so juicy and so beautiful. My fatty baby in that crib. Like, you are so innocent. And how do you have cancer? You are the most happiest baby I've ever met. Like, how can something so little can go through this? And, it was tests and MRIs and CAT scans.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
eventually confirmed it was neuroblastoma. And then I've seen big machines like I've never seen before. Even when I was sick, I never even had those type of machines near me. My son has went through a lot and eventually ended up growing. And that's when I said I want it removed because there was a percentage chance that it could have destroyed itself because we caught it on so early. Usually neuroblastoma, when there's symptoms, it's usually like too late and they have to do chemo or there's not much of a survival rate. So we were very, very lucky with my intuition bringing him to the hospital. And it eventually grew and I was very on top of his oncologist to like, let's remove it. He's 6 months now. He's healthier. He's big. Let's do it. It took another month to do it because the insurance was not approving the surgery at all. I would have to go into the office and just kind of really put my foot down and like, how are you not approving this baby
Life
surgery?
safety measures.
Exactly. And like, it came to a point where I'm like, I would pay out of pocket. Give me a payment plan. Let's do it. I'll figure it out. Eventually, what we ended up doing was, he ended up in the hospital for abdominal pain and they admitted him and just did the surgery right away. So they were able to build the
Case
insurance
thing.
after. And we were lucky. We got the results and it was already destroying itself. So
Oh,
um
amazing.
so it was scary. It was a huge week in the hospital. It was a 3-hour surgery. He had tubes coming out of him and he was only 6.5 months.
And you were a teenager going through all of that.
Literally a teenager. And I don't know how I did that every week at the hospital by myself with him, like 3 times a week, going to a different state. I still don't know how I did it.
That's so crazy. I know we spoke a little bit about like some of my issues with, my kids and you gone through it 100 times worse. And I'm like, the anxiety that it gives me just for the smaller issues and things, and you had to deal with it as a young woman. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that because when something is wrong with our kids, it's like an outer body experience. You are naturally made to protect your kids and the mommy instinct comes in and it put in situations where you can't help them. Like, there's nothing I can do to help him, and I'm supposed to be helping him. I'm supposed, so a lot of that anxiety and stuff, I'm sure, stems from a lot of that stuff as well.
Absolutely.
But then, unfortunately, you had a cancer journey for yourself not too long after. So how long after did you find out that you had cancer?
August 12th of 2017, he did his cancer removal surgery. October 19th, so about like 2 months, I ended up in the hospital. I thought I was having a heart attack, but it ended up being stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Insane.
I walked in with chest pain. I walked out as a cancer patient. Obviously, I didn't walk out exactly with the full diagnosis, but I walked out with, you have cancer. We don't know what it is. We think it's this. And then from there on out, it was phone calls and doctor's appointments. The next day, I had a biopsy. It was confirmed it was Hodgkin's lymphoma. Then I did a PET scan, and then it was confirmed that it was stage 4. I had it all over my body. And then I needed to do chemo right away.
Do you ever think of like God was preparing you for this journey with your son in a way? Like it was almost like, I need you to like listen to yourself a little bit more. Like, because what are the odds that your son has it and then you?
I believe when my son was diagnosed in April, that day I was screaming in that room and I said, God, give me my son's cancer. And then when I found out I was stage 4, they told me I already had it for 6 months. And 6 months prior to that was April.
Wow.
So in my belief, obviously a lot of people are not as intuition or religious. I believe that I had it for a reason. God gave it to me.
To fight his battle.
My son's battle. And then I also found out when neuroblastoma spreads, it spreads to the lymph nodes. So that was like a huge, I believe deep down that we were connected when it came to our sicknesses.
Wow. So stage 4 cancer is very scary to hear. What was their prognosis of like recovery? What were the words being spoken to you?
They told me that I was very lucky that it only got to touch the tip of my bone marrow, which what made it stage 4. But because it was just a tip, I didn't need a bone marrow transplant, which that would have decreased my percentages of survival by a ton. I had an 80% survival rate, and it was more kind of like if the chemo works, or if it doesn't work, or if it works, but then you get an infection, and then that will slowly shutting down your body. And then we did CAT scan 2 months, no, a month after month after starting chemo, and I was already like 60% cleared.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a roller coaster.
And I was not a marijuana smoker ever, but I smoked a lot of marijuana within that first month to help with it. At that point, you know, you would do whatever. Like if it's what's the harm, at that point I would drink organic orange juice, not orange juice, organic carrot juice, smoke a bunch of marijuana, and it helps. I do believe a lot of that helps with, decreasing of the cancer.
Crazy.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I mean, you've been through so many battles. I'm so proud of you for still being like on social media and smiling and making us laugh. And I know that's how people like us project our sadness and hide our things. We make comedy out of everything because life sometimes is just too hard.
Yes.
So in that, you're making other people smile. And even though sometimes behind the scenes, it's not funny, right? But you have family support, I'm sure, that helped you get through that. How did your parents feel seeing this journey between your son and you? Like, I have to say that as a mom now, seeing your daughter, you went through it as a mom. Now your mom has to deal with that, seeing her daughter. How did that transpose to them?
When it was for my son, um, I remember my mom was in the room when they gave the diagnosis, and it was more like, how? A
Yep.
baby with cancer is, they don't even teach that in nursing school. How is that even possible? It's usually kind of like non-existent. It's very rare for a baby to have cancer. And it was kind of like we were just sad and hurt, but we were hopeful. Not me, not me. They would, from there on out, I remember just holding him in my living room and crying, like, why?
Yeah.
It's just precious. And they were just trying to help me get through it. When it was me, my mom was also in the room, and it was like, they, when they diagnosed me, it was like I died, but I never did. Everyone was like grieving. Everyone, a lot of my family members came over that day, and it was just kind of like, I'm here, but I might not be here. Um, and I remember her breaking the news to my father, and that was the most painful thing ever. My dad was like, "Is she pregnant?" And my mom was like, "No, but I would rather have her be pregnant."
Right.
And my dad's like, "If you're saying that, then it's cancer." And my mom goes, "Yes." And I remember my dad couldn't look at me after that. And then my sisters, it was tough for them because they were going through college. So one of them was able to shut it off. And she felt so sorry that she shut herself off away from my situation after. And I said to her, "I'm glad you did, because you would have not gone through college." My other sister, who was very more involved because I would help her with her kids, had a little bit of, failed a semester during that time because there was a lot going on at home. And and then I started to lose my hair. Um, that alone was, no one felt comfortable with me being bald. So I would just kind of cover up, wear a wig, wear a scarf. But it came to a point where I I can't even be comfortable in my own home. I need to get comfortable. I didn't like it. Um, and it was more like, especially the first month, it was, we don't know if I'm going to survive. what if? I was planning, I'm 18. I was planning already, like, I'm going to write letters to my son, to my family, go and stay in the room.
I'm giving hope.
That's my little cancer survivor
that is why it's
talking.
taking us so long to record.
Yeah, that's
My children, your
survivor for
children.
you.
All good.
I was
They're
shocked
just
that it took
watching.
this long for him to actually come up.
I was like, I think I could record at home, but my 3-year-old, he's so attached to me. Like, he literally, his legs are like an octopus on me.
My husband has him locked in the bedroom with him. No, it's not Leanne. Go sit down.
It's her friend from California.
So yeah, it was hard because it's like grieving someone who's still alive. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, and it was a lot of like what ifs. And I remember there was a point where my mom is really good at hiding her, what do you call it? Like
worry.
Yeah. She was really good at hiding her breakdowns, but it was more like they were tough, kind of not like telling me like, suck it up, like be tough, like don't, kind of not allowing me grieve my situation to like help myself be strong. And that was tough for me because it was kind of like, okay, I need to be tough. But then after I'm done with chemo, you can't cry. You need to move on. It's done. So I was never really allowed to feel my emotions. And I struggled with that for years, with identity, emotions. Like, sometimes I would just drive and just cry. Like, I can't believe I went through this. Yeah. And then I would be able to, tell a family member, because they'll just be like, move on. But it's not that easy. That was my life.
It's part of like your DNA now,
Yes. And like it was, and my face changed. I had no hair, and if you know me, I've always wanted to be a hairdresser. My hair was my everything, so I just lost everything that I absolutely loved about myself, and I hated wigs for, my God, till this day. I just want no part of wigs, and it was very tough just going through it and raising now a 9-month-old. So not only am I going through chemo for 6 months, I'm also raising a baby.
Yeah.
And then I didn't miss his first Christmas or his first birthday. It was more, I was very sick around those times. I wasn't able to do, Santa photos. I wasn't really able to leave the house. His first birthday party wasn't the way I wanted it to be. And a lot of his firsts was like his first Halloween. I was in the hospital. I missed a lot of his firsts, which is why till this day I kind of spoil him a little too much because I feel guilty about it.
I'll do that.
But I made his seconds grand.
Yes. Yeah, there's always time to thankfully there was time to make up for it. And they said that you had it for 6 months prior. Did you have anything that, like, when you look back, like?
I had no symptoms. I was asymptomatic.
Just that panic attack that felt like a heart attack, basically.
It was just kind of like God knew what he was doing before it was too late.
Well, I'm so happy you're here, and you've now been in remission for years now.
Yes. Oh, God, how many years? I think it's going to be 8 years.
Do you feel like you live through, like, what if it comes back? What if it comes back all the time? Or do you feel like I can't sit in that?
It's more, I wouldn't say like if it comes back, it's more like, do I have a tumor? Do I have cancer? Or like, is it heartburn? Do I have like, I'm very like hypochondriac.
Oh, yeah.
I always think I have something. I'm always in and out. I go to the ER constantly because I think something bad is happening to me.
Yeah.
When it's all ends up being anxiety and panic attacks.
Oh, yeah. I know. I literally have a doctor's appointment on Christmas Eve morning. I'm like, you need to make me normal. Oh, my God. That's so crazy. And then your TikTok journey started after your second child was born, right?
Yes. I'm glad I even got pregnant. I was told it would be very hard for me to have a baby because of all the chemo. I went into early menopause. Yeah. So like TMI, I only get my cycle twice a year because I'm still in early menopause.
Yeah. All these blessings that came with so much sorrow and pain.
Yes. And so I got pregnant the first try, which was crazy. And how he was made and how he was born, it very shows his personality. Like, you were ready. But I had him and I thought, I have my family, it's complete, everything's going to be amazing. I already know how to raise a baby. Because I never treated my issues before, like the anxiety, the depression, and I did not take medication for it, which is what led to my postpartum being the way it was.
Yeah, I can relate with.
And it was instant. It was the second he was born. I remember that putting him on me, and it was a very quick delivery. Like, I knew I was having a baby, but it was very much, I'm in the hospital getting induced, he's out. They put him on me, and I remember like being there, like, get him off of me.
Wow.
And I remember in the moment, like, I knew that was not normal. Why is him on top of me doing skin to skin bothering me? And then, being sleep deprived, not sleeping. And it started with, okay, 5 p.m., here comes the panic attacks. The next day, I'm not eating. I'm forcing myself to eat. I'm shaking. Panic attacks. Then it was crying and crying. Like, which my oldest, when he was born, I had the baby blues, but it was more like, I look at you, I'm crying because I'm so in love with you. How did I make you? This, when I look at you, like, I know you're mine, but I'm just looking at you. Like, I don't feel anything. And I remember, like, that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I recorded everything of my postpartum journey, the bad and the good, so that I could tell myself when I have baby fever to not ever have a baby again. Just look back at the videos, because it was horrible. And so glad that I have an amazing husband who, we started to take shifts. It was, okay, I have the kids until he gets home from work. The second he gets home from work, I'm going to sleep until like 2 a.m. And 2 a.m. is my turn. So he definitely helped me a lot. I saw the doctor right away. I was put on medication. Because it was the first dose of the medication, I had a horrible, horrible panic attack. I ended up in the ER. I was very weak. I could not get out of bed for 2 days. To the point where I could not eat. I would force myself to eat just Cheerios. But then I also found out, like, later on, a few months later, I lost a lot of blood. My iron was really, really low. So there was a lot more issues going on, which was making the postpartum worse.
I feel like there is such a lack of care for the mom the second the baby comes out. It's like their job is done. As soon as the baby's delivered, like, okay, bye, go figure it out. And there's so much that happens in that, like, your body is literally normalizing from this pregnancy that, like, completely took away everything from you as a normal woman. And now it's like trying to catch up from what it lost for the 10 months or gain, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your hair's wonderful or whatever when you're pregnant, but you just start losing everything. Was it more of your husband noticing your behaviors, or were you more self-aware?
I was very self-aware.
Okay.
And my husband is very old school, so he believed in postpartum, but I don't think he was realizing the extent of it until he saw it for himself. And he was like, okay, we need to do something. What can I do to help you?
I think about, like, our parents and then their parents' generation that never had support after babies. And I think about, like, my own grandma, who always, when I think about her, God rest her soul in peace, but she was always like, I feel like so much depression. And I remember asking my dad, did that start after kids? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, she had postpartum depression that was never, ever addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So, ladies, so you got to get some help, because it is so scary, because you're trying your hardest to be a good mom and you're sleep deprived and your emotions, everything, it just feels like the worst day every single day. And you don't know why or what or how. And you have the husband, the house or whatever, and you have all the things that are so that your whole life you're like, just work and everything will come into place. And, like, you feel like, well, I have everything now. Why am I sad? I shouldn't be sad. and you feel guilty for being in it too. And then you get questionnaires, right? You just get questionnaires, and then you're scared your child's going to get taken from you. So you don't say like, oh, I have suicidal thoughts, or I feel like I envision throwing my baby against the wall sometimes when he's crying. And you are so scared of what happens after that, like your children being taken from you, that you don't say anything. And then there's just zero support there.
Mm-hmm.
So no more children, right? Me neither.
Um,
Never want to go through that again.
it's not even at this point, it's not even like just the postpartum. Now that my kids are getting older, they both have a lot of needs. You know, my oldest, the cancer survivor, he has very behavioral ADHD, and my youngest was just diagnosed with autism. So it would be very selfish of me to have another baby because they need my full attention.
But how lucky are they to have you as a mom, to be ahead of the times and the culture status that we grew up with, that would have never been like, okay, I think he has this, or I think they have, okay, let me support this. Where we have so much more resources and now to support our kids in that, where before it was like, well, just stop feeding them ice cream. Like in our days, where because they didn't know enough, right? Now there's just so much more information. So they're very lucky to have you. You know, God chooses, I truly believe God chooses, and our kids choose who their parents are going to be. And there's a reason why you're their mommy. That's for sure.
But even till this day, especially with my youngest's diagnosis, there's people who literally tell me like, he doesn't look autistic.
It doesn't
He's
have a
not autistic. He doesn't look autistic. He's not autistic. That's normal. And it's just kind of like, don't tell me. Like, I'm the one that went through like the diagnosis. I'm the one that went through the referrals and the tests, and I was on top of his doctor because I knew from
mom
one and a
gut.
half years old, like something's different. And people tell me getting a second opinion. No, there's no issue with my son being on the spectrum. You know, he's my baby. And if I can get a diagnosis as early as I can to get him the help that he needs to be successful in life, I don't see it the problem.
My oldest recently got diagnosed with ADHD as well. Probably because we're crazy moms. We passed that gene down, because I know I have it as well. And I just don't want him to struggle the way that I struggled. Again, growing up with immigrant parents, like my mom was like, you need to listen. Just listen to the teacher. And I just remember being in class and trying, and I just couldn't. Nothing would just stay in my brain. I just couldn't. And my son's only in first grade now, but now that follows him up until college, and he's going to have the resources he needs so he doesn't struggle the way I struggled. And I just felt so stupid in school. And that's what kind of made me misbehave. I'm like, well, I'm funny, so I'll just go with that. So it's like we're like a new era of moms, where we're just more aware of our kids. And because we know what we went through getting through some of these things, like we don't want our kids to go through that. And I think the other generations don't want to admit that something's wrong with your child. I know that's hard. I know that's hard to face it, but they're just going to do so much better if it's like early intervention and getting those resources. And there's actually nothing wrong with having, what is it called when you get those special modifications for your children in school?
IEPs, or the 504 plan.
Yeah, so like it's okay to have that, and it doesn't look bad for colleges or look bad in as a student.
To me, I see it as it's the ticket to get in. You know, if they have those disabilities and they have IEPs and 504s, some schools would actually approve them quicker because they have to accommodate to them.
And life's already hard enough. Like, I would love a handout. So here you go. Here's a handout, a little bit to just help you. Extra time on a test or whatever you need. But it also helped me parent not so, like, old school, I guess. Because monkey see, monkey do. We parent how we were parented, and not saying anything bad. They're wonderful parents. But I am way more patient and, level to level, and just have a different way of communicating with him because every child is different, you know?
I'm very against hitting, smacking. Sometimes my kid gets me to a point where I'm like, "Ugh," but I'm like, it's not going to do anything.
Nothing.
I was raised with my mom, hitting with the shinana, the pazeña, whatever was in her way, and I don't think that's the answer.
No.
I feel like it would actually make them worse. It's tough because, a lot of times they're like, he just needs a good beating. Like, no, he
I
doesn't need
know.
that. He's a kid and he doesn't know how to regulate his emotions. Even there's been days where it's him and me. Now he's setting me off and I don't know what to do with myself. So I just take myself and I go in the bathroom, I scream and I'm like, I just let the anger out and
It's okay.
Mhm. And it's tough. It definitely is tough. And a lot of people don't realize, especially with Emilio, I also hate when people tell me like, oh, change his diet. And it's just like, no, it's not just regular ADHD. There's more to it where I am going to bring him to a second opinion. I want to bring him to Boston because I want to get like a full neurological testing on him because I do believe there's more than just ADHD when it comes to my oldest because I see it and it's the same thing like you said, like when he's in school he puts himself down and he tries. He calls himself stupid and he's not. He is so smart. He's an old man. Like he is so smart and I wish he had a little bit more confidence within himself. He just I don't know. It's hard for him to just try and be good. But lately he's been amazing when with the elves around. He's
Oh,
been
I
great.
know. This Santa and the elf, it's like annoying, but at the same time, they've been so good too. My little one, though, I don't know what the heck happened, but he's not scared of anything or any of us. Timeouts don't work. Nothing works. Like, he is on his own agenda. And I'm like, sometimes my husband and I look at each other, we're like, God, he's an asshole. So they're all different.
My little one, he's like nonverbal. He's not like he doesn't communicate, but he can sing, he can count to 20, he can say the colors, he can, name every animal in the book, but he doesn't communicate. And this little shit can like drives us nuts. And I look at him and I'm like, what the fuck?
I know. There are definitely reasons why we are given these children, and I think that's a healing for us too. Because sometimes I'm like, think about little Sylvia. Think about little Sylvia. How would little Sylvia wanted to be treated? Just think about that. And I'm like, okay, I feel bad for little Sylvia. I'll feel bad for you. So how is like your like TikTok journey going now? Because you have what 11,000 followers. That's amazing.
Yes. Well, lately I could be doing better. I go through breaks and a lot of my content, I've noticed that when I try, I don't really go viral. It just
Yeah.
when I post stupid stuff and everyone like if you meet me in person, you'll be like, "Wow, you really are what you are on TikTok." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm literally just a crazy person and I'm probably even crazier. And when it comes naturally, I'm like, that's a good one. I'm going to video it right now. And then I do it and then it blows up. So lately I've just been a little bit more calm about it, but it's so fun. I meet new people almost weekly. They'll be like, "Hey, I know you from TikTok," and it was definitely awkward at first because I'm very antisocial sometimes. So like people coming up to me, I'm like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Okay," but it's definitely has become more natural meeting them, especially around like the feast season. I meet a lot more people, and it feels nice and it keeps me going. And I think now it's just kind of battling out the TikTok mom life, work life. And actually, I didn't even want to do Portuguese TikTok. I actually wanted to do beauty. I did not want to become viral for being Portuguese at all.
It's
And
scary.
here we are.
Yeah. I know. I started with the podcast not telling anybody Portuguese because I was scared of the Soares vão falar and all of that. So I definitely didn't want to. But at the end of the day, they always do come out supporting, and they are the biggest the biggest ones that are out there, like helping us grow. So it's like I always end up here.
It's a love-hate relationship.
I always end up doing and being the Portuguese thing. I'm like, you know what, is what I know best.
Because what it is I love my people, but the stereotypes are like they're there. The stereotypes are there, and that's what makes it hard sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, now I've told myself, like, if you can't handle people talking shit or saying things like that, then you need to stop, because you need to be able to handle it if you're gonna do it. So I feel like I'm doing a positive thing. I'm just helping other people grow as well and highlighting them, because I believe that we deserve it. Like, people deserve to be highlighted. Their stories are, and because we're such a closed culture at the same time, yes, we're loud and happy, and we eat and we dance, and there's so much like love in our culture, especially how the families are, but there's also so much negativity. Discover Slow to V Distillery. Nestled in the heart of the Central Coast, we bring you small batch spirits made with passion, precision, and a touch of California sunshine. From our award-winning handcrafted gin, whiskey, and vodka, every sip tells a story. Whether you're stocking your home bar or looking for the perfect gift, Slow to V Distillery has you covered. Here in California, Slow to V honors their Portuguese heritage and traditions by crafting their own take on aguardiente, blending Portuguese authenticity with the spirit of the Central Coast. With aguardiente, the traditional Portuguese brandy, distilled from the finest grapes, aguardiente is more than just a drink. It's a celebration of heritage. Whether sipped neat, mixed into a cocktail, or paired with desserts, it brings a taste of Portugal to any occasion. So next time you raise a glass, make it a toast to Portugal and the vibrant culture it brings to California. Visit us at 200 South 4th Grover Beach to taste the difference for yourself, or shop online at slowtov.com. But it's almost like that generation needs to like go bye-bye to really make an impact. So me being able to put my life's problems and my struggles, I opens the door to other people realizing, like, you can be Portuguese and have problems. You don't have to, like, don't tell anybody your life. Why are you saying this? Why are you saying that? And it's like, it helps me.
Oh my God, I hear that from my mom all the time. It's like, why are you telling people your business on TikTok? And I'm like, Mom, it's just, they're very much closed. Like, the less people know about your life, the better, which I do agree to an extent. But when there's me and then there's TikTok, sometimes I open up a little too much.
That's okay. I think that's also what helps, because you put your vulnerability out there and people can relate to that. And that, at the end of the day, is what people want, like real authenticity. They don't want the posts about the products and this and that. Like, they're like, are you paid for this? Are you getting paid for this? Like, there's always that question. And when you're just like talking your batata frita self, then people love that, which is awesome. So do you feel like you're going to continue on this road of just posting? And it's almost like an addiction too.
Oh yeah. Now, especially with my almond croissants now, everyone looks up to it.
You live in Massachusetts?
Yes.
Are you in Fall River?
Yes.
How wild is it living in Fall River?
It's, I would say 5 years back, it was definitely like a little San Miguel here. Now there's so many other cultures involved. There's Brazilians, Nigerians, Spanish, and it's definitely very diverse now, but you still see someone everywhere you go.
That's wild.
Yeah, but it is nice because you can buy chorizo at Walmart.
No.
Yeah, they have a Portuguese chorizo at Walmart.
You guys are blessed. I feel like you have to travel for everything Portuguese over here, which, whatever, I will travel. But being that you had all of these things happen, did the community rally for you?
We kept it very close. Are we talking about the cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kept it very close. Like, I didn't do like a GoFund. I only did like a hashtag on Facebook, but like hashtag like Soares Beauty Strong, but we kept it very closed. Yeah. And that's one thing I regret. I regret keeping it close. I kind of wish, it got I got a lot of people's attention because I feel like a lot of people should hear my story, and that maybe it would make other people aware of their body and getting the help that they need and getting their checkups and, you know, doing other stuff. And I just wish that I was a little bit more open about it, for sure.
Well, thank you for opening up with me about it. I appreciate it. Sometimes I feel like I ask too many questions, but that's truly my way of connecting with people on a deeper level as well. But I appreciate you sharing your story with me. You made your dream come true. You're a hairstylist now.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that are positive in your life, and I hope that people continue to learn about you. I hope that this opens up like the Instagram world for you, and people can see that, you know, it's not just about the comedic and the funny. It's also you've gone through a lot, and sometimes the comedy is what helps you battle those silent struggles that we all go through as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can people follow you?
So I have my Instagram, which is I love to eat batata frita. TikTok, I love to eat batata frita.
I'll tag her and all the things too.
And then my Facebook, which I don't approve unless I know you. I'll only approve, you know, the person. But other than that, it's pretty much those two social medias that's public.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to me. I know it's so busy this time of year, but I'm so happy that we finally did this. I've been wanting to share with my California, especially followers, you and your story. So I really appreciate your time, and your son over there. I appreciate his time too.